here. We're going to resume. Okay, recording is in progress. We're going to continue Parshas Vayera. Before we begin, I just want to point out that today Shelley is observing the yahrzeit for her mother, Frida Bas Shmuel. We should dedicate our learning and her memory, Le'ilei Nishmasa, and Nisham should have an aliyah. So what we're going to do is now there's so much in Vayera, so much. I mean, you have Abraham and the angels, and he serves them basar b'chalav. So just to prove you that he didn't wear long tzitzis and a gapata, and he served them milk and meat to his guests. And you have this Abraham arguing with God about Sodom. And then they go down to Sodom and the angels, and they go to Lot's house, and Lot's like, yeah, come in. And the mob comes, and he's like, yeah, leave my guests alone, but I have these two unmarried daughters. They're wonderful. There's wild stuff. And then, of course, they have to flee in the middle of the night, and then they destroy Sodom. And then there's Lot and his two daughters in the cave in Sodom, the origins of Ammon and Moab. Ooh, baby. Lots of good stuff. And then, of course, we finish with Akedas Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, which is, rather simple story, easy to grasp, easy to comprehend, not much to talk about there. So I want to focus on the part that nobody ever focuses on, and that's chapter 21. Again, using Rav Grumit's brilliant insights, but this just the ability to focus in and zero and read the text. So we're going to look at chapter 21. So it's on page 94 in the stone, if you have a stone's throw away. Now, the opening of this is VaHashem Pakad es Sarah kasher amar vayas Hashem leSarah kasher diber. Why does this sound familiar to us? Miriam says Rosh Hashanah. That's correct. This is the laning on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. Now, what does the word Pakad mean? Remember. Now, if I say, if I'm going to talk simple Hebrew, and I'm going to say my wife's going to say to me, when you go to the store, keshetelech lemakolet bevakasha lifkod et halachmaniot, or pakadeta liknot sabon. Did you remember to buy soap? No. What is this to remember? What's the word for zacher? Right, lizkor. Zachor tizkar, zachor al tishkar. What's this pakod business? So our keen analytical biblical minds teach us that there's another time when we have the word pakod. It's yes, that's true. That's correct. Lisa, it's very right. Correctly to count. That is correct. Where we have in the counting of the Jewish people and in the beginning of Parshas Kisisa, okay, but in the terms of a memory sense, it's a lot of words. Hebrew words can mean a lot of things sometimes. That's very tricky, okay. In the memory sense, at the end of the book of Bereshis, Yosef gives a charge to his descendants, and he says, "Listen, when you leave here, whenever that may be, don't forget me, and don't forget to bring me out." And then when they actually leave, it says that they brought the bones of Joseph. Why? And he uses the word pakod pakadati, a double language. So pakod denotes a remembering, but not like, oh yeah, I remember to take my lunch today, but I remember something that was promised long ago. This is a long-standing memory, or really remembering a long-standing commitment. Okay. I remember that, I said that, years ago when I would come back here, I would come visit you, kind of thing. So it says that Hashem Pakad es Sarah, Hashem promised Sarah, he remembered because he what? I don't know that anybody uses this in real life. It's definitely biblical. In real life, I don't think the word pakod probably in terms of memory is in modern Hebrew. I don't think we would use that. But then again, my modern Hebrew is somewhat limited. The Hashem had promised. Now, by the way, if we look for a second, and this is worth looking at, because Hashem came to in the beginning of the parasha, the angels come and they said, "Oh, by the way, you're going to have a child." Now we're like, wait a minute, I've seen that before. It's not exactly news, is it? Because in the end of Parshas Lech Lecha, look at page 74. Okay, so that's chapter 17. Oh my goodness, what happened? Where'd everybody go? Oh no.
We see you.
Oh, you see. Okay, I'm sorry. My screen decided to misbehave. Okay, there we go. In the end of chapter 17, when we change Sarai's name to Sarah, okay, and God, again, he's promising that he's going to have, this is after we have he tells him, by the way, you want to be my guy, we're going to have a little bit of a new covenant, which involves, a little bit of pain on your part, which is, of course, the covenant of the bris. And he tells him at 99, you're going to have this. And then in the middle of the paragraph break, towards the bottom of the page, Hashem says to Avraham, Sarai is going to be now called Sarah, and we'll bless her, and I'm going to give you a son. I will bless her, and she will become into nations. Many kingdoms will come from her. Vayipol Avraham al panav vayitzchak. Now, this is going to be important. We'll hold this thought till later. Avraham falls on his face. He threw himself on his face. Vayitzchak, and he laughs. And he says, remember last year, if you remember the shiur we had last year, why is it that when Avraham laughed, he wasn't castigated, but when Sarah laughed, she was? Okay. And if you, it's on video from last year. So he says, I'm 100, I'm going to have a kid. And she's 90, she's going to have a kid. So Vayomer Avraham Elohim Lu Yishmael Yechel Fanecha. So Avram says to God, Yishmael might live before you. Oh, this is how you know that Yishmael was his middle name. His first name was Lu. Okay, that's biblical dad rabbi humor joke. Vayomer Elohim. So then God says, don't worry. Aval Sarah Ishtecha Yoledes L'Chabein B'Karasa Eshemo Yitzchak. Your wife Sarah, now on page 76, will have a son, and you will call him Yitzchak. And I will fulfill my covenant with you. And Yishmael, we're going to have that also. Now, by the way, what's noticeably missing here in this parsha, and you read it carefully, is that Avraham kind of doesn't relay this information to his wife. He keeps it to himself, and he's like, not so, he doesn't seem like, yeah, that's amazing. He goes, yeah, but what I have Yishmael? He's like, no. God says, yeah, he'll be great, but you're going to have Yitzchak. An unusual kind of reaction. Abraham's thinking about his own progeny, and we'll see that Abraham indeed is torn. Abraham has a son. Sarah does not have a son. Abraham has a son, and in his mind, yeah, I'm pretty set. Like, okay, I'm good, God. Like, I have Yishmael. And God's like, no. Your Sarah's going to have. He laughs. Yeah, she's 90. Hello. And I have Yishmael. And God's like, no. She's going to have a son. You're going to call her Yitzchak. Okay, great. He doesn't tell her, which explains why. And now we forget about this because there's a parsha break. We go from one week to the next, again, one cliffhanger to the next, and we get to Vayera, and the angels come, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, Sarah's going to have a child. Like, she has no idea because he never said anything to her. Now, keeping that in mind, read this parsha when it actually happens, back in chapter 21, back on page 94. In the Avraham story earlier, he doesn't really include her much in the process. But look what happens when she has a child. Vatahar vatelet Sarah Avraham ben leziknov lamoida shedibir asol lehim vayikra Avraham Hashem benon alo l'shayil Sarah Yitzchak. Vayamal Avraham es Yitzchak beno ben shmonas yamim kasher tziva oso Elohim. Now, if you were writing these verses and you would say they had a child, what would you say? How would you say it? This is where I purposely went quickly because now we're going to go really slowly over it. Okay. And maybe if we had like our highlighters, my daughter showed me her Tanakh in seminary, and it's like, oh man, all kinds of stuff. Right. And let's read this carefully. Hashem finally remembers her and does like he said. By the way, he said, Kasher Diber, not to her, but to Avraham. And she conceives, and she bore a son. Sarah bore a son to Avraham in his old age. Exactly when he spoke to him, exactly which God had spoken. Avraham calls the name of Shem Beno, his son, Hanoah Lo, that was born to him, Asher Yolda Lo, that was born to him, Sarah, Yitzchak. Avraham circumcised Yitzchak, his son, at 8 days, just like God had commanded him. You see where I'm going with this?
She's the vessel.
So we could take like a totally, maybe like anti-chauvinist approach here and say this is misogynist, is like whatever word you want to fill in. We could do that. We could, because that's usually my approach, right? It's a women's class after all. We don't usually go that way. But what's interesting is that when she finally, and the way Rabbi Grumman puts it, it says when she finally like comes into the limelight and he fades to the background, because this is now Sarah, because it starts off Hashem Pakad es Sarah, not Hashem Pakad es Avraham, not Hashem promised Avraham. Hashem remembered Sarah, and he finally comes to Sarah, and what does he do? He pulls through. He comes through with the promise, and what happens at the end of it? Oh, Avraham. Then he now you could say, oh, why he can't stand on it. Now he didn't write this, but the way the Torah is portraying it is as if he's in the background. But now he comes again into the foreground, and the son to him in his old age. The son that was born to him, right? So in other words, you can't, I dare you to unsee it now. Let's put it like that, okay? As we say, you can't unsee the exchanges of these pronouns that are put here for a reason. It's meant to draw your attention, okay? And they call him Yitzchak, of course, which should be like a huge shock to us that his name is Yitzchak, because we're told like 99 times this kid's going to be named is Yitzchak. Okay. Do you know that? Do you know how I got my name? No. How would you know I got my name? This is the part of the shiur where I share my family's secrets. Okay. So I'm the youngest of 4 children, and my older brother, who many of you know, had 2 sisters. And when my mother was pregnant with me back in the Stone Age, she said, my brother kept saying, when is Sam coming? When is Sam coming? Didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, but he named me Sam before I was ever born because he wanted a brother, and he would say, when is Sam, brother? So my brother was 4 years old at the time. Okay, we're still 4 years apart, Baruch Hashem. And so I guess if I would have been a girl, it would have been Samantha. And the other flip side of that story is my first name, which I do not care for. I know, Mom, you're watching this. I had no say at the time. I don't like it. I know you don't like to hear that. I know. I'm sorry that you had a close friend who happened to have died before I was born. It's not my fault. Anyway, I don't like my first name. So that's why it's E. People always want to know what the E stands for. I'm not telling you. If you know, you know. Let's keep it to ourselves. So that's the things we expose yourself. I will not. E is not for exposing either. The E, my kids once thought, what does it stand for? Eliana once thought it stood for electric. Rabbi Wein once said in public that it stands for excellent. I'll take that. Okay. Anyway, things we do to our kids. So now we're told that his name is Yitzchak. Why is his name Yitzchak? Which happens to be my Hebrew name. They both laughed. Okay, so
they both
but it's not really because they both laughed. It's kind of what does the word Yitzchak mean? It's funny because Avraham calls the name Yitzchak, that the son that was born to him, which Sarah bore to him, called him Yitzchak. Now we could end it right there and simply say, because God told him, by the way, that's what his name is going to be, just like we were told that's what Yishmael's name is going to be. Avraham, then, it's interesting that he gives a circumcision to Yitzchak Beno at 8 days. He was called his name before he had his bris, which nowadays, you ever ask parents like what the name of the kid is before bris? It's the most uncomfortable thing for parents in a hospital, because like it's such a heebie-jeebie thing we don't want to say. Or when you hear like people like have a baby and like an hour later you have all that 14 names already on Facebook and like, oh my God, you're like, I didn't have the aliyah yet, you didn't have the bris yet, right? But it's baby X, baby this, but here we knew his name. Now you could say it's in retrospect, but Hashem said to Avraham, his name is going to be Yitzchak, like God had commanded him. And Avraham is 100. Lo es Yitzchak beno. There it is. and Avram was 100 when it was born to him, his son Yitzchak, him. Vatomer Sarah. Oh, Sarah, by the way, she gets to say stuff occasionally. She gets to say something. Okay. Vatomer Sarah, Tzechok asa li Elokim, kol hashameya yitzachak li. How do you translate that? I know we can read what it says here. God has made laughter for me. Whoever hears about this, yitzachak li, will laugh for me. Now, is this good or bad? You know the saying, we're not laughing at you, we're laughing with you. We always say to make people feel better. Does this mean people are laughing at her or people are laughing with her? Nancy said something? With. Can you support your statement? Or is this just like, you're just such a Pollyannish view of everything and you're so positive?
Because she's laughing, so they're laughing with her.
Why is she laughing?
Because it's a joke that she's going to have a baby at 90 years old.
It's a joke, but she has a baby. So in other words,
What do you mean she has a baby?
she does have a baby. Is this a happy thing or is this kind of a sarcastic, snarky thing?
I think a mix of both. Like, oh, I really do want a baby, but I can't believe it.
Well, let's read the next pasuk. And she says, Vatomer, mi milel Avraham henika vanim Sarah kilarti ben l'sukunav. And she said, I mean, why are people going to laugh for me? Because she said, who is the one who said to Avraham, Sarah would nurse children, for I have born a son in his old age. By the way, you see how she includes him in her business? When he hears the whole business, he doesn't even tell her. He didn't say, he's like, I got you, Shmuel. He didn't seem so like whatever about this. And when she has it, no, look what they're going to say. Well, Avraham, look what God did for Avraham. Okay.
I think even today, when people have kids and they're very old, people look at it as scans. They don't look at it so positively. They look at, oh my God, he has a kid. He's going to be 90 at his bar mitzvah. It's not looked at in such a good light, I think.
Are you speaking to me in particular, Shelley?
No, you're young still. You're still
What do you
young.
mean? Moshe's bar mitzvah is going to be in Daughters of Israel. That's where we're going to be. So.
You know, a lot of times people, when they had a baby later in life, they said it was a change of life baby.
That's for sure.
You ever hear that
I mean,
expression?
we have the word Ben Zikunav, and we see it later that when Benjamin is born, or really Yosef in Parashas Vayeshev, Ki Ben Zikunim Hulo, right? A Ben Zikunim, it's called.
But Rabbi, today, I think it's a little bit different. So to your point, Shelley, if a guy is having a child in his 70s, people might look askance. But if a woman in her 40s has a child, and that's considered kind of late,
I think today
women are sympathetic. Women are happy because she might have gotten married late. She might have,
Yeah, I wasn't thinking 40s. I mean, you're right, but I was thinking much older.
I'm thinking other women might have laughed with Sarah because maybe it gave them hope.
Right. I mean, I think this definitely has a positive connotation to it. If you look at Pasuk Vav in the Targum, oh, it's so unbelievable that she's not here. I cannot believe this. She told me she wouldn't be here today. Also, Devorah said she wouldn't be here today. So they're going to see this on the recording. Look at the Targum. Targum on the inside column. It's Aramaic, but it'll be self-explanatory. Va'ameret Sod Sarah Chedva Avadli Hashem. He says, what's going to happen? God's going to do a Vivian to me. He's going to Vivian me. Kol Dishema Yechedili. What does Chedva mean? Right? All those sisters. Gila, Rina, Ditza, and Chedva. That's, this is, people are going to expect. Look at Rashi. Rashi says, Yisamachli. They're going to be very excited for me. Now, if that means that, so there's one thing that when we talk about tzchok, laughter can mean a lot of different things. Laughter, generally speaking, when we talk about laughter, it means happiness, not derision, because there's a different word for laughter, for derision. It's scorn. It's like I use the word snarky, like, now, if you had to pick one name for Yitzchak, and knowing what we know about his life ultimately, like, would you say Yitzchak had a happy life? I don't think he's the guy that would fit into that category. I mean, after all, his parents are like a million years old when he's born. Okay, his father can never play ball with him in the backyard because he's all busy, converting people and opening tents and whatever. And he has an older brother. Let's not forget about that. He has an older brother who does get kicked out of the house, which we're going to get to in a minute. He does get kicked out. He's 13 years older. He gets kicked out of the house. And there's a lot of tension in the house about that. His father, he knows that he's not his father's firstborn. His father still has tremendous heartwarming feelings for his older brother and his older brother's mother, by the way, because he ends up remarrying his older brother's mother. Keturah, we're told, is Hagar at the end of the parsha. And his mother dies pretty young. He doesn't see her all that much because, oh, by the way, one day his father takes him for a walk and says, son, we're going to go on a little spazier. And then that whole thing happened. And then he's suffering PTSD his whole life because, oh, by the way, that time my father tried to kill me. I get it. It's for God. And I know, but my father did try to kill me. And then afterwards, my mother died. I wasn't even there because I had to go like to yeshiva because there was yeshiva then. So there's a lot of stuff there. And then I can't even I'm such a low yitzlach maybe, or I'm such a this. My father doesn't have faith in me. He has to go find my wife for me. We have to go to the crazy cousins and we find the wife, and then we have that. And then I have two of my own kids who don't get along and they want to kill each other. And then they trick me. And then and I have no career success because I just have to do exactly what my father did. So that Yitzchak is one of the avos we've discussed. That's a whole interesting approach. But I don't know if anybody would necessarily call his life one that is happy or yay, look, Yitzchak. And I think Nancy said at the beginning, what was it when we started off this Yitzchak business? It was a trap. I lured you into the trap, and you went for the bait. But you said it quite correctly. Why were people laughing? She doesn't know. See, she can't. Yeah, that's very convenient when you can't find the unmute button. It's the space bar. Sometimes we laugh. When do people laugh? People laugh sometimes when they're nervous. It's a nervous reaction. But when you're faced with something that is just simply unbelievable.
Okay.
And you can't, that's what you said. And you can't help but laugh. You're kind of like.
Sometimes you laugh because you really don't know what else to do.
Right. And
Nervous laugh.
Especially, by the way, I see this especially, and I always have to reassure, unfortunately, I've had way too many cases of death and shiva and sudden loss where there are small children left behind. And I always tell the children, I say, there's no right or wrong way to kind of react right now. Whatever comes to you is okay. And sometimes kids just laugh because they don't know what else to do.
What'd you say? Dirty.
So when that happens, it's kind of like a laugh of disbelief. But in other words, when something is just so out of the ordinary, that in and of itself is unique, and that's what the laughter represents. So she calls him Yitzchak, Kol Hashamei Yitzchak. Like, nobody's going to believe this. There's no way, but Abraham, he's be able to give me a child, and I'm nursing a kid, and I'm 90 years old, right? Now, look, with that in mind, we can move on. The child grows up, and this is an interesting pasuk at the bottom of the page, pasuk ches. The structure of it points out. You have three things here: growing up, a child, and weaning. Whatever weaning is, I guess people, the people make weaning parties anymore. I don't know. Only the Yekis when they would make what's called a vimple. You ever heard of this custom called a vimple? Anybody here of German Jewish descent? Nobody? Okay, so as soon as we go, this is why I wish I had enough tech ability that I could interact in the screen and show you right away the Wikipedia page for Vimple or Wimple. Ask your husband. I bet you he has a Vimple. Ask him.
Okay.
Ask. Miriam is married to a Yeki, Benji Dessau. When I was in the, I happened to be, I was at a Levi, but there's a big in the cemetery in Clifton. Right along Route 3 there. So that's where the Kahal Das Yeshurun sections are, Rabbi Schwab is buried there, and all the Askanim of the Breuers are there. So when I was doing a Levi there, and I just saw two names, I saw Dessau, and I took a picture and I showed the bench. He's like, yeah, those are my grandparents. Because I haven't been there in years, but I'm like, yeah, I said hello. But a Wimpel, you find it in the German Jewish community, is that a Wimpel is actually a thing that is used to wrap a Sefer Torah. We have simple clips with belts and magnets. Now they use Velcro. But it's like a long cloth. It's probably about this high, but really long. And they tape it and they wrap it around several times. And the excess, they actually just kind of like stuff in the extra. But on it is written the child's name and his birthday. And usually they have it like on the day that the child is weaned, so to speak, or comes of age, or whatever it is, or toiletry, I don't know, whatever it might be. But that actually is an interesting custom, and they put it around the Sefer Torah. So that's called people call it a wimpel, but in the Yiddish or German, they'll call it Wimpel. So look it up and you'll see what I'm talking about. So he has this, so you have growing up, child, weaning. That's the first half of the pasuk. The second half of the pasuk is gadol, gamel, child, right? So, and what's smack in the middle of it? Avraham. It's Avraham. Now, there's only one other time that now this seems very unusual. We've read this a million times. Like, who makes a weaning party? And by the way, and to show you that this is not just like some other thing, it says Vayas Avraham Mishteh Gadol. I'm going to give you, and you're going to guess this right away. There's only one other time where the word Mishteh Gadol is used.
Right, Purim.
Right, Purim. So which means that like this is over the top. Abraham went
This is
all
such an
out.
accomplishment, though. I think, there's certain people where when they're so excited about something, they like every single little thing is a big deal. I think that's part of what this is. I think this is another affirmation on Abraham's part that his having a kid at this age, or Sarah, is such a big deal that he is literally celebrating every single milestone, even if it seems inconsequential.
Okay, that's definitely I think the feeling you want to get from this. By the way, notice how it's Abraham, she's not involved. When she has things, she includes him. When he says it, yeah, on the day that Yitzchak was weaned. Okay, now all of a sudden, look at the next page. Now, given what we know about this is like it's happiness, it's this, and by the way, I could totally identify with that. Of anything like the kid does is amazing, right? It's like it feels like the first time kind of thing, right? Exactly, yes.
Funny thing is that they didn't say they had a party at the circumcision, which is what we all do.
Right, we all do that, and we have for everything. I have a very similar situation in our home. Okay, so it's not like I didn't have Canaan or blessed with many children, but it's as if like we never had a kid before, because like so every single week, like there's certain things that are like he has to blow out the Havdalah candle. And as soon as he blows out the Havdalah candle, everybody claps. Yeah. Like this poor kid, he's gonna go somewhere and nobody's gonna clap for him, and he's gonna be like so messed up. I blew out that. Yeah, so what? But everything is a big deal. We make a big deal out of everything. That's true. So given what we know about the laughter and this and that, the next pasuk comes really, really interesting. Top of 96. Vatere Sarah es ben Hagar hamitzris asher yolda Avraham mitzachet. Sarah sees a lot of things to point out here. Ben Hagar hamitzris, of course, is Yishmael. Now, what does it not say? Right, it does not say Yishmael. It says, let's translate this, using kind of a snarky tone. And Sarah sees, the son of that Egyptian Hagar that was born to Abraham. What is that really saying?
She feels left out, like she has nothing in, like it's something that happened totally outside of her.
Right, but even more than that, this has nothing to do with me.
Right. I'm saying she like the fact that Hagar and Ishmael are part of the family, now that she's got a kid, they have no business being here. She knows it's going to be continuing through Yitzchak, and why are they still around? I had nothing to do with it, and I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Correct. And it's also, you know what? This is not, they're almost like items, nameless, faceless. It's like, he's a boy. He's 13. It doesn't say Yishmael. We've heard the name Yishmael a bunch of times already. The son of Hagar the Egyptian that was born to Abraham. So it's like a thorn in her side. But what's the word? Mitzachek.
Right.
So what does that mean, mitzachek? Here is, by the way, because if you look through in the last couple of parshas, the root of tzachek appears quite a few times. Kol Hashem yitzchak li, kol Yitzchak, right? Lamazet tzachak Sarah. Okay, mitzachek. So mitzachek, we know later on we see it with Rivka and Yitzchak that the Avimelech sees them mitzachek. But what is here mitzachek? So look at Rashi. So Rashi has to fill in some blanks for us because if you don't know Rashi, what does it say? Mocking. Oh, here it says mocking. Wait, we just said laughing is not mocking. It's not derision. That was a good laughing. So if that's it, how do we know that that's good laughing? This is bad laughing. Well, we can know it in context. But what do you mean mocking? What does that mean?
Doesn't say who it's mocking.
Right. So look at Rashi. So Rashi is forced to fill us in the blanks with because otherwise it doesn't make sense.
That's a real stretch what he's saying.
What does he say? He says avodas kachavim. He's or gili arayos or shvichas damim. In other words, Rashi gives us the big three. He's either in other words, he's bad for Yitzchak. He's mitzachek because he's a murderer. He's a philanderer. By the way, he's 13.
Right.
Now, it's not such a stretch because the Ba'asher Husham, they always contrast with Ben Sarah and Mora, which we'll see here in the parsha. But that's also someone who's that age. But what is he doing wrong? He is obviously a bad influence on my son. Now, parents, especially parents who have kids in school and they're in social situations, every time there's a kid who's a bad influence, I mean, there's only so much we can do to say, to have your children deal with someone who's a bad influence or what we think is a bad influence on them. And the kids, by the way, are always gravitated towards, they're always, attracted to the ones who have a bad influence on them. That's just human nature, okay? Now, Rabbi Grummet says here, it's just something unbelievable, which I can't, it's like one of those, I can't believe he didn't see it. So what he's seeing, it doesn't, in other words, what he says is, it doesn't matter what it means. What it means, mitzachek, is that he's more Yitzchak than Yitzchak is. He is Yitzchaking, is actually the word that he uses, or he uses Isaac-ing. He's Yitzchaking. I'll read you his quote, which is just really, we don't know exactly what he's doing. In fact, it might not be relevant at all for what Yishmael is doing could literally be translated, he was Isaac-ing. That is, Yishmael is seeking Isaac's place. He is Isaac-ing. And he brings us from a number of different sources. So we know there's a problem in the house here. And especially we sense it with Avraham, because look what she says. She says to Avraham, Garesh ha'amah hazos v'espena, ki lo yirash ben ha'amazos im beni im Yitzchak. Really powerful words here. She says to Avraham, get rid of Hagar and Yishmael. No, that's not what she says. She says, get rid of that one, get rid of the fill in the blank, okay? The slave woman, the Ozeret, the Shifcha, the again, whatever you want to say, and her son. Now, why? Because this son of a maidservant is not going to inherit in B'ni Yitzchak. He's not going to have any part of what my son Yitzchak has. In other words, she says in B'ni, because it is also his son, but it's my son. My Yitzchak is not going to be out Yitzchak by that fake Yitzchak. Let's make it very clear, Avraham, what's happening here. We know what God spoke to me, spoke to you. We know the situation. This is my Yitzchak. That one, I'm not even going to say a name, and the son of that one, I'm going to say his name, is not going to be Yitzchak like my Yitzchak. Okay? But notice what she says. She doesn't say if I ask you, according to Sarah, read it very, very carefully. What's the problem? Or I should say, more importantly, who is the problem?
Okay.
Hagar. Hagar's the problem. Because she doesn't say get rid of the kid. Oh, yeah, and throw out the mom too. She says get rid of the mom. Get rid of the mom. Oh, yeah, and that. Right? Garesh es ha'amazos. And then her son. Get rid of the mom and get rid of the son. You solve the problem. Okay? Now, the way Avraham looks at it, look at his reaction. Now, this is quite understandable. Avraham, who is a guy who spends his whole life welcoming people and loving people and taking care of people and opening his tent to people, what does he do? His wife says, yeah, you got to kick them out. Vayera hadavar ma'od be'einei Avraham al odos beno. This is very, very problematic for Avraham. Vayera, it's evil, but here it says distressing, but Vayera, the word is ra. This is like ra be'einav, like what? But what bothered him? Alodot beno. It's almost as if he doesn't say it. Doesn't say anything to Avraham about Hagar. The two-wife thing, which I will never, ever, ever understand. Forgive me. I cannot wrap my meager little brain behind that. But it's a thing. And by the way, one of the other wife is always called a tzara in Talmudic language. Tzara is, you can understand why. If you ever, and I always go, if you ever watched, not that I watched it, I watched like the beginning of it. That show Big Love. Remember that show Big Love on HBO a million years ago about the Mormon families with the many wives? I'm like, who the heck would want that? Oh my God, are you nuts? Okay, so he's saying, all right, I get it that there's like strife between the wives. Okay, we might have to cut one off. But Odos Beno, I should get rid of my son, which tells you that Abraham doesn't agree with her at the outset. Explains his behavior throughout. Yitzchak is like an also ran almost. He has Yishmael. He has to get into the line here and realize what God really is telling him, which, by the way, we saw last week a little bit. He has to pick up on these divine signs. So now, here's where God steps in, and God really picks up and he boosts the stock of Sarah. This is the most important pasuk in the entire Chumash, in my opinion, right here. Okay, and you'll see why. Hashem says to Abraham, "Vayomer Elokim Elavim." It's not Hashem, it's Elokim, God of justice. Al Yeirah benechal anar v'al amosecha. God adds in. See, don't let it distress you too much about the boy. Oh, by the way, and the woman, and your woman, and your Amah. This is it. This is the most important line in the entire Chumash. Kol asher tamar elecha Sarah shema b'kola. Whatever Sarah says to you, whatever Sarah says to you, listen. Most important line in the entire Torah, okay? I have a big sign in my house that reads, it's like when you walk in. Why? Because I will call, the offspring will be through Yitzchak. But not to worry, Avraham. You'll also have something. He's also your descendant. He's not the one. He is a one. He's not the one. You'll still have plenty of offspring through him. But God throws in the Hagar bit. Now what happens is Avraham takes them out because he listens to God. God spoke. Okay. No, he doesn't answer. He didn't say anything. He just kind of does. And this is a very, very disturbing scene, what happens after this, from a number of reasons. Vayashkem Avraham baboker vayikach lechem v'chem asmayim v'yiten al hagar sam al shechma v'esayel v'shalacha v'telech v'tesak b'midbar be'er shava. Avraham gets up early in the morning, which we see that's a habit with him. He likes to get up early. He takes bread and water. He gives it to Hagar. He placed them on her shoulder along with the boy. Now, this image, we always have this image, and I know they always look at the artists and kind of like how they paint, So if I was channeling my inner Erica Brown, I would give you a bunch of paintings to look at, and we would go over, we'd talk about it. But, I'm not that sophisticated, not as smart as she is. But the notion that here's Avraham, he's carrying all this stuff, okay? And, she's carrying the stuff and the boy, right? It seems that it's somebody carrying the boy on the shoulders. When you stop and you think about it for a second, how old is Yishmael here? He's I don't know what weaning is, 2-3 years old. So Yishmael's got to be like at least 15 years old here, if not older, because we don't know how much time elapsed from the weaning party. And however, when he's growing up and he sees doing, he's like a healthy teenager, okay, and he's a big bovan of an animal. You know, he's pera adam. He's he's a hunter. He's this and that, okay, and which is kind of alluded to here in this episode. And he puts her in. They go to the desert. The water runs out. She casts away this child. Keep in mind, this is a teenager. She throws him away. She casts him by one of the trees. She goes and she sits down a long way away. Now it uses the word a bow shot away. What's the significance of that? First of all, that he does become a hunter. But if you think about sort of the evolution of hunting technology or killing methods at the time, when the invention of the bow and arrow, what that allows the hunter to do is to kill from a great distance without having to witness so much up close the dying scene, right? And these guys could shoot from pretty far away. So in other words, she's far enough that she can kill him, but she doesn't have to see it or hear it. And then she goes and she cries. Now, I mean, we got Kenai Nahara, Baruch Hashem, Jewish mothers all over the place. There's no Jewish mother in the world that would ever do this, right? I mean, first of all, we wouldn't go that easy. Second of all, this pattern, this behavior is very, very troubling. And also, like, what's Yishmael doing? He's not a kid. He's not 3 years old. He just left him under a tree. Left him under a tree. What is he? Is he like? I mean, he's probably in shock. I mean, taken into account that he has just been rejected by his beloved father. Why? Because all I wanted was the love and affection of my father. Sound familiar? And I got thrown out. And my father wanted the younger one. Sound familiar? Is that a pattern somewhere in the Chumash? I don't know. And I just want to be a good guy. I just want him to like me. And now my mother got rid of me. I mean, could you imagine the PTSD that is in this family between Yitzchak and Yishmael? The two of them should have coffee together. But you see, by the way, they do kind of make up. You know, that when they bury Abraham at the end of the parsha, you know, and Chayesara, it's like they're both there, and yeah, you think you're messed up, I'm messed up, and there's a lot to be said about this, about how Yitzchak wants to be more like Yishmael at certain points, and vice versa. This is Yitzchak. Yishmael wanted to be the Yitzchak mitzachek. He wants a Yitzchak. Lots to look at here, and he's probably just like. And what do you do when you don't know what's happening to you? You're paralyzed, you can't move, and you just emotionally break down. And that's why it says that when the angel heard, or God heard and sent the angel, what did God hear? Not her crying. Because her crying is almost like unjustified. Her crying is like, what are you doing? Like, you can't throw the kid away and then cry about it. Do something, die with him, stay with him. No. Vayishma looking as kol hanar. God hears the crying of the nar. By the way, nar also an indication. Nar is a teenager. Nar is not a tinok. Nar is not a yeled. Nar is already one of age. We've mentioned this before, that the word, like, what when in yeshiva or when your grandparents told you to stop with the nonsense, what's the word they used in Yiddish? Narishkeit. What's this like? I don't know how to translate the word narishkeit, but we all know what it means. The word na'ar, Rav Shamshon Hirsch says that it comes like the word lina'er, because we said in the Shira right before the splitting of the sea in Parshas B'Shalach, it says vayina'er. So we say like lina'er et hamapa is to shake something off, is lina'er. A na'ar, you could use this in your teaching with your NCSY children with your narishkeit, is that they tend to shake off the yoke of authority. Like, I know better. I don't know if anybody's ever dealt with a teenager before. Miriam spends her whole life, like, on purpose with teenagers. God bless her. We have to do it, we're forced to do it. You do it by choice. So You have to have your head checked, but you have to, you like, they know better. What do you know? You're telling me I know everything. I learned it. I saw it on TikTok. So that's Na'ar. So the Na'ar cries, God hears, and then calls to Hagar and says, Malach Hagar, like, what are you doing? Hagar, what's with you? Don't worry. I'll Tiri, don't worry, because I heard that, but it's such a patch and punim. What are you doing? I heard the Na'ar crying where? Basher Husham. I heard you, I got you here, but I heard him all the way over there. In other words, you're really far apart from him. You have no business being so far apart from him right now. Go take him, and I'm going to make him to a great nation, et cetera, et cetera. She sees the water, he saves her, and then they say, and then what happens? And ultimately, it's on page 98. A fitting close of this is God is with the Nar Vayigdal, and he grows up or matures or whatever. And he becomes what? Rovek Kashas. He becomes an expert with an arrow. She put him in arrows away. That's what he becomes. And then Vatikachlo imo isha me'eretz Mitzrayim. So in other words, we're coming to a transformation here. Whereas he wanted to be molded by Avraham, be in the image of Avraham, and Avraham should make his life. Who ultimately makes the persona of Yishmael? Vayikachlo imo isha. She's the one who makes him a wife. She's the one who now is going to decide his future based on what God told her. I think she gets the point, like, yeah, okay, we're out of that business. We're out of the Avraham business. We have to be in the Hagar and Yishmael business. And even though God promised it to us, we're going to get it. We're going to have to find our own way. We'll be okay, Yishmael, even though I'm a lousy mom and I left you to die. But luckily we had some divine intervention, quite literally. And now we're going to be okay. Having Sal, now that sets, we have the split is made. That sets the stage. Yitzchak now is everything's great at home with Sarah and Avraham. We got rid of those problem people. Those you people are not here anymore. We fired her, the Ozeret. We gave her the 2 extra weeks pay and whatever. And she's gone with her kid. And we don't have to deal with all that nonsense anymore. They're gone. All right, we figured their life out. And then we finish just, he makes an Avimelech. And then, of course, this brings us. So now that everything, that it's like the Torah is like lifting you up just to chop off your feet again, is that just now when we get to where we're supposed to be, Avraham, sorry, Yitzchak, future, progeny, promise. God makes Avram realize that, yes, Sarah really is the one in charge here. And by the way, they say on that pasuk, listen to her. Rashi points out because she's greater in prophecy than you, which is true. And the Gemara Megillah discusses this as well. What happens now? Oh yeah, let's have the Akedah. So it's like, and that's always the story with the Avos. It's like, it's never like, you can never have a second to breathe. It's never okay, which is a paradigm for kind of Jewish history and Jewish life. We think like we finally get to like where we understand something, we get to where we're supposed to be. And God says, okay, by the way, we're going to do something else now. Okay, next subject. So you have to look at all. That's why this is such an important chapter, and how it gets kind of glossed over because there's so many other things in the parsha, which also then think of it in the context of Rosh Hashanah. So Rosh Hashanah, VaHashem Pakad Sarah. We talk about God remembers us, etc. That's why we read it. We make that announcement every year, and that's why we have the first day. But if you're looking at the whole picture of kind of like life, and does your life turn out the way it happened, the way you wanted it to be, the way it was promised to you? How much effort do you have to do to make sure that you follow the right path, listen to the right messages, the angel speaking to you, et cetera, et cetera? Do you follow your covenantal destiny, that kind of thing? That's a lot what to think about on Rosh Hashanah. So there's a far deeper message as to why we read this on Rosh Hashanah. And then, of course, we get into the Akedah. So this is so much here. And the beauty of it is, all you need is a chumash. All you need is a chumash. It's right there in front of you. Read the words carefully. His. That's why you have to like take the time to really, really look at the words. So God willing, we'll continue this next time. And I hope everybody saw that next Monday, which is Monday night, is the Yahrzeit, the first Yahrzeit of Rabbi Sachs. So we have a beautiful event now taking place between the two shuls. Rabbi Proops and I are going to be doing a conversation in memory of Rabbi Sachs. And I hope everybody have the ability. I'm actually going to find out if we can Zoom it also. Not everybody can go, but so I'm going to find out about some Zoom ability. Anyway, everybody have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.
Have a wonderful trip.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.